the next subject we're going to elaborate on within the coming 20 minutes is the magic of autonomous systems. And I'd like to invite on stage John Troch, Arjan van Hekezen. I hope ik zeg dat goed.
Close enough.
Zeg dan, Arjan?
Van Hekezen.
Van Hekezen. And Georgi Georgiev. Professor Georgi Georgiev.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, please find your spot just here. Actually, it's very boring for me to just read up what you do. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you to give a brief introduction of your experience and your background.
Okay. Shall I start?
Ja, dankjewel.
Because you were looking at me first. My name is Arjan van Hekezen. I'm a proctor, or in English, teacher, researcher within STC, looking at how immersive technologies in education can help our educational programs, mainly for our students to develop courses that are experienced as much more fun, because I've learned a lot already, but the aspect of fun is a bit missing. So that is what I am doing within STC. And I have a commercial background within logistics, so joining STC 4.5 years ago, so relatively new in the field of education. And before that, I had strategic account management roles within DHL and Siva Logistics.
Thank you.
So that's me.
Jan Troch, you're the founder of DroneQ. DroneQ Robotics.
Good enough. My name is John Troch. I'm one of the founders of DroneQ Robotics, and we apply advanced robotics in the name of advanced digital integrity solutions, mainly on offshore and ports. My background: I started as a diver, professional diver in salvage, and now we are using technology to support the old-fashioned way of doing work underwater, above the water, and in the air. That's a very short story.
Thank you. Next to you is Professor Georgi Georgiev.
Hi, good morning.
TU München.
Yeah, Georgi, my name. So what I mainly do with some colleagues is foresight. So we are trying to understand the values that are important for some technology to be implemented. First of all, what values do we have in particular activities, for example, in different logistic case studies and so on. And what technologies, robotic technologies, for example, could be of support to these services. We are doing different research projects, different educational curriculum development projects, advisory work, and so on. And once again, we are trying to understand the value, and therefore I highly value what your values here are, obviously, altogether, because I strongly believe that within 5 to 10 years, this here can become reality, what everyone is talking about, but mainly only if the values get understood. Yeah. And the added value,
Exactly. So let's start with giving us, and this is a question for you and John, give us a brief outline, like an update of the research, so we can level up the knowledge in the audience.
Well, maybe I start.
You should go.
Are you comfortable, or are you more comfortable closer to the table?
I'm totally fine.
Okay.
I don't need a table.
I do.
So yes, when we continue with the topic of the added value, I'm based in Munich in Germany, and we just finalized a week ago one project funded by the Federal Ministry of Transportation and Digitalization, where it was a lighthouse project where we demonstrated the integration of robotics for the regional logistics of one rural area in Germany. What we realized at the very end is that the technology works pretty well. The risk assessment for these robotic operations, in this case it was aerial drones, but not only. The fact is that it's quite complicated. Everything is getting done manually. And mainly what we tried to do is to show the added value and the sustainability of these operations, not only in the monetary dimension, but also in the social and human dimension. So the highest added value we did have in the operations was for providing logistics for medicine and also for different high added value products for elderly people in these rural areas, just to increase the life quality at that regions. What was the big challenge was, again, maybe officially the regulations. But for me, that's not the main challenge. The regulations, the lack of the sufficient regulations is caused mainly because of the lack of convincing arguments that the technology we're talking about and want to introduce, that it's safe and secure.
Safe and secure, yeah.
We do the safety assessment of the operations, and half of the assumptions we do are just assumptions, just because we know, this drone comes from this manufacturer, it has this and that characteristics, and so on. But we don't have yet the billions of flight hours of these drones, so that we can say, this drone really is as safe as it's officially stated as at its data sheet, at its technical data sheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it's about robotics, if we come to the very beginning of robotics, if we come to this, maybe one of the brightest minds of the 20th century, Isaac Asimov, yeah, one of the greatest minds in science fiction also, but scientist himself, he stated these 3 laws of robotics, which were overtaken by all robotics professionals until nowadays. So the most important what we know from there is that robotics are there to overtake activities of humans, support activities of humans, and don't harm humans. Mm-hmm. These 2 things we want to provide. The 3rd thing we're totally unsure about. Mm. We don't want to harm humans by flying drones, for example, or driving Earth robots and terrestrial robots, and we are not sure yet. So, of course, the regulation is just lagging behind. Yeah. Of course, the regulation will become very fast in its development if we make sure through tremendous amount of trials that these operations are safe.
Yeah.
As simple as it is, yeah.
Yeah, I spoke to Arthur in the break. So we have this chicken and an egg thing. If the regulation is there that you're not allowed to do certain experiments, how do you get the billion amount of hours to prove, to convince,
I mean, we're coming now from a very nice situation. We have the aviation, which is the safest transportation mode ever existed on Earth.
True.
But we now bring it to cities, or at least try to do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then we want to keep the existing standards for safety by having flying robots in our cities, or also terrestrial robots. We need to do quite a lot of work to make sure that it works well and safely, yeah? And securely. So, as simple as it sounds.
Yeah. Let's ask your neighbor, John. Can you give us more insights about the implementation of advanced robotics in your field?
Yeah, we had a vision. I mean, we started with a vision, and with that vision came the challenge: how to bring that to the world, because it's not only about technology, it's not only about knowledge. It's also about social adaptation. It's about a cultural part, because we can have the best technology in the world, but if it is creating a culture difference, then it's difficult to do that. And so we thought about baby steps not in technology, but baby steps in convincing primarily the government that this technology is actually there to help us. So we're not trying to replace the human by robotics. We're trying to add robotics to support the way that we make decisions more efficiently. And so what we actually do, we work with, for instance, with Port of Rotterdam to not to get an exception position, but to integrate in the manned operations. So integrate in the way that shipping is doing business since God knows how many centuries. So we're not trying to create an accession position, but we are working with legal to say, okay, tell me what is needed for manned operations. So manned shipping, manned airplanes and stuff like that. And then we integrate in those processes because it will keep the time needed to adopt this shorter. And so today is a very good example of that. So we went together with Drone Rotterdam to the legal department of Port of Rotterdam to tell, so what do you need to enable us to do this demonstration today? And so we drafted a document where we stated all the safety features, also with communication with the robotics, because this morning I heard a comment about that. So what we did, we used IT to make robotic operations safer. So we use, well, a little technical, but we use hardened VPN tunnels between the operator and the actual drone so it cannot be intercepted. Mm-hmm. So this is just the technology solution that we do, but it's actually showing that it's safe to work within the manned operations. We do that with airports, so with drones, but also with shipping. So, and I think that is the key to success, that you need an ecosystem like the Drone Port Rotterdam, the Port of Rotterdam, the IRNT, to make that happen, and actually not saying that you're going to do it, but actually showing that you are doing it. So it's like we in Rotterdam, there is a phrase that we say what we promise, but we promise what we say. And that's what we try to practice.
Thank you. Going to Arjan, you work a lot with students. Yeah. 15 years of teaching experience?
No, not.
15 years in commercial roles, yeah. But a lot of teaching experience. I wanted to know your vision about and your experience from teaching students. What competencies and skills do you think will be needed in the future when it comes to advanced robotics?
I think the main thing is that we need to teach our students more about soft skills. If we look at all the things that are happening nowadays, getting knowledge with artificial intelligence and so on, it will be provided by the students much more easily. Mm-hmm. But how do you cope with this knowledge? How do you work together with robots? So how do you act with cobots? So in essence, I think providing soft skills, training soft skills, is becoming more and more important and relevant for our students. Is
it more difficult to develop soft skills?
Well, actually it is. You are invited to visit the Waalhaven, another beautiful STC premise that we have, where we have a soft skills lab. And actually the most funny thing to do there with our students is actually to make a phone call. Because to make a phone call.
A phone call?
Yeah. So they are all, well, actually everyone has a smartphone and they have it in their hands all the time. But to have an actual conversation is really something that is experienced as very difficult.
Yeah. To develop some empathy with the person who is on the other side of the phone call.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So social skills, and also in relation to robotics, how do you work with those kind of new and relevant technologies? Yeah, do you see the danger in robotics, and how do you explain that as a logistics worker?
Yeah. So now we slowly come into this ethical framework where these new technologies work. Yeah. What is your position as a professor about how sensitive we should cope with this ethical framework within whether robotics and people work together?
Yeah, I support the formulation of ethics, but I would a little bit make one step further and call it maybe system understanding.
System understanding?
Yeah. The ability of students that we need to somehow provide them to be able to understand systems, how they work now, particular processes, to understand where are the challenges, how we can make some further optimization steps, and where exactly and how robotics could help. Yeah. So as the title of today's event is Smart Vision, it's exactly about having this vision. So it's also when you're having students, you can see how some of them want to get for a startup. Yeah, they have some idea, they have totally no idea if it's feasible or not. Yeah, in the most cases, it's not feasible, of course, which is normal. But they have no idea about that. And exactly the main idea of what we also are having a project on, which I was going to present today. It's an EU project for creating a curriculum on that for higher education, for the higher education domain. It's exactly for the disaster management with drones and other technologies, mainly digitalization of disaster management processes. So it's again about ethics, of course, but furthermore, it's about understanding what processes do we have, what processes can we have in future, and how to respond to that with robotics. Because when I hear today, everyone here talking about the growing Port of Rotterdam, for example, etc., it is in the scenario if the development here goes linear in a linear way as until now, and the growth is just linear and it's just expanding. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But how about if in 10 years?
When it's exponential.
How about if in 10 years it stops growing the volumes of transportation, of logistics? How about if we begin to go more for sufficiency and less for transport between China and Europe? Mm-hmm. How about that? How do we transform the process here? Of course, we will have some process furthermore, but they will change. Yeah, and I'm sure that most of them will be robotized. The ships, all the processes. Yeah, then we'll have robots everywhere that need to somehow work together. Yeah, that was this first project, and furthermore, if we have disasters, for example, which happen to come sometimes. Yeah, what do we do then? Having so much robotics, some of them will have some problems. Some of them need to help in case of disasters, yeah, mm-hmm. or behaving different than the normal way. And all of that we need to somehow transfer to the students to understand, first of all, before knowing about drones of any type, to try to understand processes, how they simply work, how a particular job is getting done. As I saw recently in one building, I don't name the building, I don't name the person. There was one staff member, a disabled person who was doing some job at one building and got lost for quite a long time. Yeah, and if this person would have had some device to help this person to get a better orientation, for example, in that building, that would not have happened. Mm. Yeah, just a simple example. Yeah. In a much bigger scale, we have it here at that port or at many different other cases. Yeah? So we need to understand the purpose before we understand what technology we need to respond to that purpose with, right?
So I need to wrap this up. I have one question myself, and I hope you guys in the audience have questions before we go to a lunch break. So energy efficiency and sustainability was mentioned many times earlier today. Can you name some of the breakthroughs in power efficiency or maybe renewable energy when it comes to advanced robotics?
Yeah, maybe I can give an example.
Yeah.
The little vessel in front of the building.
Yeah. We haven't seen it, but we're about to see it.
Yeah, we are going to demonstrate that. Actually, that very small piece of robotics, it does the same job as the manned boat with 4 people on board.
Wow.
Exactly the same, but it will be done remotely. Yeah. It can be done autonomously in the future. Not today, not next week, but in the future. So that is, I think, a very good example of how the footprint of such advanced robotics can actually help in lowering emission and that other big challenges that we face today. And it's only a 2-meter boat, but it's what you do with it and how it fits in the processes which makes the difference. So I think that's a very good example of how that contributes to that.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Questions from the audience. Yes, please. Wacht even voor, daar is dat ding. Ja, you have.
My name is Job. I'm a student maritime officer and student maritime smart solutions for intelligent shipping from Ralph Wassink and Monique van der Drift. But I have a question. Some say maybe maritime officer studies is maybe a little bit obsolete or old school, let's say. But how do you think for Mr. Georgiev and Mr. Troch, how I've written it down. How do you think job-specific knowledge will be relevant with the idea that robotics will take over many tasks?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, closer to the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. How do you think job-specific knowledge will be relevant with the idea that robotics will take over many tasks? For me,
great question.
In 15 years, obsolete.
Job-specific knowledge taken over.
Yeah. For example, seamanship or navigation or knowledge and about
Great question.
Thanks.
I may
go ahead.
Before I started working as diver for Smit-Tak, I went to Pieter de Hoogweg. I did SGS. It's Stuurman Grote Sleepvaart at that time. And that knowledge that I gained there helps me now to operate the unmanned vehicles in a safer way. You will need that knowledge. It's not that the robot will take over. It will help you in your task. So the knowledge that you gain with your education, actually it's crucial to be able to operate a USV in this uncrewed vessel. We have now one in Antarctica sailing, and you need all your knowledge that you have to be able to operate it safely. So answering your question, it's crucial. I mean, these are the kind of people that we need to operate the unmanned vessels. No doubt about it. It will not take away your knowledge.
If I may add something, exactly in the same spirit, I would say that currently AI is already overspeeding vastly the human computation abilities. Yeah? And we are now having the challenge also doing that projects exactly for that reason. We're having the challenge that we have a serious lack, if I may say it, of human intelligence on the side of, for example, personnel. Yeah? And we need to provide that knowledge to people. And the knowledge that is lacking of, that is not the knowledge about artificial intelligence or how to build drones. It's more about the knowledge about the professional knowledge, to understand how processes work, for example. Yeah? How, for example, do I safeguard a person in a half-destroyed building after an earthquake? Yeah, normally, without drones, without robots, just with my hands, yeah, so to say. And after providing that knowledge, then of course that people can understand, and have new ideas, how to do that in a better way, how to involve robotics in that, how to involve artificial intelligence, and so on, to make it much more efficient and have much lower mortality in the disaster cases, for example.
Oh, that's true. And Arthur, this morning, he was getting the question how to become a pilot. It's not about operating the drone. The drone is a stupid thing. It is. I mean, it is the human intelligence behind it to operate that safely and what to do with it. That is the main key. And so knowledge and education is key to be able to live together with robotics. And we have to learn that because we're not very good at that as a human being. Yeah. We really need to learn that.
But I do understand the question because throughout the day we were presented with this idea that the AI and new technologies are growing exponentially, and it's growing faster than we can, pace up with it. So I think that the question that lies underneath your question might be like, how far are we from these cognitive robots that will be able to think real time and make decisions? So I think the fear of experts who are now taught to be an expert is about that. So if the robotic industry becomes faster and faster and faster, maybe in 10 years, they will become smarter than the human intelligence, or are we not that on that point?
I mean, it's in the spirit of what Adrian's idea, I think, as an organizer is the idea of the professional education. Yeah? And the idea of the professional education is that currently now we are having a very, very difficult situation in Europe everywhere. We have two parts of the society. The one part is consisting of people who have good technical knowledge and less professional knowledge. The other part is the inactive professionally people, for some reason, who have the professional knowledge on board, but are not up to date technically. Yeah. And we are trying just to put these two wings together so that we can have both abilities on board, the technical and the professional one, so to say, how process work, how automation works. Because as you're saying, automation, it can help in 10 years if we prescribe or if we train the automation with sufficiently smart processes and sufficiently optimal processes. Yeah.
If I may add, what my former CEO of DHL Supply Chain said is that all robotics automation in the logistics processes is not about replacing the workers, but it is about redefining their roles. So I don't think that you need to be scared of your future and if there is work, but I cannot promise you that what you think today is going to be your work will be the same as in about 5 years. Most probably not. So stay flexible and open-minded.
Wat zei je? Yeah, yoga is always good to stay flexible. I think the cognitive flexibility we're talking about. More questions from the audience? Yes, please. Could you please pass it to your left?
Hello, my name is Santiago. I'm a maritime officer student also. So in our minor, we also have lectures about autonomous shipping. And one of the main questions is, how long is it projected that this will take for this to be achieved, autonomous shipping?
It's already being done. Today also we talked about international relationships and cooperation. The Norwegians are way ahead of us, to be honest. They already have autonomous ferries in the fjords sailing. And that we bring that, because in front there is one of those guys who actually worked on one of those ferries. He's there. So I think that's a very good idea of, it's already happened. It's happened 5 years ago, only not here. And we're trying to bring it over here. So autonomous sailing, it will happen. We recently did a study with TNO about the impact of unmanned shipping for the offshore wind industry. And it turned out, it was also in cooperation with the University of Antwerp. And the results were that we could reduce the cost by 12%, just unmanned shipping. So it is happening, it's happened already, and it will only grow.
Thank you.
We can have 1 or 2 questions before we fly out to lunch. Anyone? Yes, here in front, the lady in front.
I will not try it. Hi, my name is Ilja Amster. I'm an educational consultant at SCC. I was wondering what your point of view was, John, on you said that now technology is also relying on experience in shipping or in this field. But if it's taken over by technology, experience, in a few years, there are no experienced seamen who know how to sail or... what's your point of view of that? Because
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there will be a shift in responsibilities of the people operating those unmanned vessels. So yes, there will be a change in the way they use their knowledge in that part. But it cannot be that someone without any maritime experience can operate those vessels safely and integrate in the manned shipping. So you have to understand what a manned vessel actually is about. So it's not only about push the buttons, because my 6-year-old daughter can do that. but it's about knowing what the impact of your actions is. And that's where the education comes in. So it will be a shift. It will not be a complete replacement because maritime people needs to be there anyhow. So there will be a shift in having those people on board of those vessels and having ashore, operating those vessels anywhere in the world. And I mean, there are also in the Waddenzee, there are now experiments going on about autonomous ships. And this is not being done by people from the laboratory. I mean, those are mariners who are operating those vessels. So I don't think that is a very big risk. It will be a shift in your tasks and responsibilities.
But I have a counter question. It's a good answer, but it's the
Thank you.
But it's the first phase. Yeah. You're talking about still the mix of crewed and uncrewed ships, yeah? How about when we reach the situation only with autonomous ships and vessels and tech, yeah? What will happen then? Because most of the processes now are predefined because humans are involved in them, yeah? In the way, because humans are involved. When humans are not involved, or not that much directly in the mechanical process, for example, the processes will be totally different as they are now, right?
Yeah. Okay. Good counter question.
Yeah, that was your question. Thank you, Jon.
The thing is that we as people, we have to start thinking about overseeing those processes. So we don't even call the drone pilots anymore. We call them process operators because they are actually keeping the process going. And so you will have a different role, but you need knowledge to be able to do that. You need to understand the processes, the environment, because the maritime environment is an unforgiving environment. Yeah. And so that knowledge will remain there. Either it's completely autonomous or not. It doesn't mean that you don't have to oversee it. That's at least my opinion.
Thank you, gentlemen. We need to wrap it up. The lunch is ready. Bon appetit. We're going to meet each other after the workshops. I hope there will be Exactly. Just check which workshop you registered for. It's important that you find it. It's on the 8th floor. The lunch is being brought to you by Marin. Bon appetit. I hope you enjoyed the session so far. And I'm going to see you here at 14:15. Sorry, it's not correct. We're going to see each other plenary here for a keynote at 2:15. And after the workshops will start. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bon appetit.